Real estate investing in and of itself is probably not going to make you rich. In fact, most people that invest in real estate still have a 9 to 5 job. They're still trying to escape corporate slavery, and they're just hoping that the price of their property goes up over a short period of time so that they can cash out and maybe do another deal. Fact is, most people that follow this path aren't going to get the returns that they're looking for, and it certainly isn't going to make you rich. So then how do people actually get rich through their property investment? Because there are a small amount of people that are able to do it. And what you find is that most people who are wealthy, they take the money that they're earning elsewhere through a business, whether it's online, whether it's brick and mortar, they're taking that money, taking that cash flow, and then they are storing it into assets that they hope will increase in value. It doesn't really matter whether that asset needs to be held onto for 5, 6, 7 years, because they're just using it as a place to store their wealth. Most of the time, the people that do get rich through property, they're either flipping those properties very quickly for a return, or they're developing properties. And property development is probably one of the best ways for you to get rich through property investing, because you can purchase one property and then you can use the bank to finance the second and the third, and you can do multiple deals. Obviously, if you're just getting into it, you start with one, but you can easily scale it over time. And some property developers that have been in the game for a significant amount of time, they'll do dozens of deals in a single year, 20, 30, 40 deals, and they'll be able to make millions of dollars a year just from doing that. Another reason why property or real estate investing probably isn't going to make you rich is because of where the market is at right now. 30, 40 years ago, when the price of real estate was significantly lower, someone could buy a property and they can hold on to it for many years until now, for example, and that property that they bought maybe for like $30,000 or $40,000 is now worth $3 or $4 million. So it's a significant return just by hanging on to that property for that long. But if you were to invest into a property today, at least in most Western markets, Australia, Canada are two of the significant ones, you're probably going to be buying into a property at a starting point of about $900K to $1 million. And so when most people purchase a property at that price, they're hoping that they're going to put money into it now, and the price of that property is going to increase significantly over a period of time. But the chances of it increasing as much as it did from 30 or 40 years ago up until now is really low. Hanging on to it for 7 or 8 years, which is the average time most people hang on to their properties, and hoping it's going to increase in value, just like it would if you bought that property in the 70s and held on to it for a couple of decades, is probably not going to happen. There's a certain limit to the property market. I know in Australia and Canada it just seems to keep going up, but there is a limit. New homeowners can't buy houses as the market is already. So if we expect the market to get to 1.5 mil, 2 mil for an average property, it's simply not going to happen. And if it does, there'll be so many people that simply won't be able to buy a property at that price point. But like I said, investing in property is a way to store wealth, and you can flip properties for a quick profit. You can develop properties. There is ways for you to make money, but probably not in the West. In fact, some of the best property markets in the world right now are actually in developing countries. Southeast Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, parts of the Middle East and North Africa. In these markets, you can actually put down the same amount of money that you typically would in Australia or Canada for a deposit, and you can actually put that money down in one of these emerging markets and buy more than one property. So you can actually buy multiple properties for the same amount of money that you would put down in Australia or Canada for a deposit. And those properties are far more likely to increase in value purely based on population sizes, economies, people becoming richer, more foreign investment, more tourism. Those properties are going to increase in value significantly quicker than if you were to buy in Canada or Australia. But even still, you're probably not going to get rich doing this, or at least you're not going to get rich quick. It takes a long time for you to build a property portfolio, and most of the time that money is invested into an asset. It's not liquid. You're basically going to be asset rich, cash poor, and most of the time people are asset rich and they still have a 9 to 5 and they're still a corporate slave. What we want to do is create cash flow so that we can invest that money into high growth assets without building a prison for ourselves, because cash flow is what funds your portfolio. Of course, you can play the debt game, but doesn't it make a lot more sense to simply make more money, have more cash flow, and invest a portion of what you are already making into property, into assets, and then bankroll those assets via the cash flow that you have? If you want to take out loans and things like that, of course, you can do that too, but it's much less risky if you know that you have cash flow coming in. This way, if anything happens, if the price of property suddenly goes down, if interest rates change, you still have cash flow that's coming in on the side. And it's actually cash flow that's going to make you rich. Most people who invest in property who are already rich have been making that money from a business that they've got. So what we want to do is create cash flow online so that we can invest that money into high growth assets. So instead of working a 9 to 5, it's much better to create cash flow online through an online business, and one that is location independent so that you can take the money that you earn and then place it into emerging markets with much higher ceilings. And in my opinion, there are 3 different paths for you to go down in order to achieve that. So the first path you have is to sell services online. If you're currently working a 9 to 5, you're basically trading your time for money. You're delivering a service. And so what we want to do is take that model and just put it online. So a freelancer, for example, is the next step up from being an employee. And as a freelancer, instead of having just one boss who pays your salary, you can have multiple bosses who pay your salary every month. This way you're able to scale your income just by being a normal standard service provider online. We call this a freelancer. But obviously you don't want to just sell your time for money forever. This is why people usually become agency owners, or they create a business where they can hire people to do the work for them. So typically this is what an agency owner is. Let's say you have a video creation company, you'll hire a few different video editors. That way they can do all of the editing, and you as the boss can focus on sales or marketing or whatever it is that you're good at in order to grow the company. So you can have as many clients as you want. You're not trading your time for money, and you're paying someone else who will then trade their time for the salary that you pay them. So that's the first path, services. The second path for you to create online cash flow is through information. So this is typically through coaching or consulting or through informational products. You can make something as simple as a PDF or a book that someone can buy online. You only have to make it once, and you can sell that hundreds or even thousands of times. The same applies for coaching and consulting. Information is a huge industry. It's worth billions of dollars. There's so many people that do it, and there's always going to be a desire for more information. Even though there's so much free information online, there's still a market for it because people want to learn from someone who has experience, and they will pay for that experience. My dad is a big property developer. He's been developing properties for the last 45 years. He helps me in my journey developing property because he has that experience. Typically, someone would pay him for that knowledge, but obviously because he's my dad, he's just going to hand that knowledge down to me. And that's information that only he can provide. Yeah, I can get books, I can go on YouTube, but there's nothing that matches the information that someone who is already successful at doing something can provide you. So information is a super profitable industry. You can make something once, sell it multiple times, and coaching and consulting doesn't take up a lot of your time. Most people that do this also charge a high ticket price for that service, which means that you can increase your revenue while also making sure that the profits are super high. The third way for you to create cash flow so that you can invest that money into international real estate investments or even property development is by creating apps or software, AI agents, digital tools, something along these lines. Anything that's related to a subscription service. You could also consider a community as being within this pathway. It's sort of in between the second path I mentioned, coaching, consulting, info products, and then software, because it's based on a subscription type arrangement. And so basically what this means is that you're selling a tool for a low ticket price, but you're able to scale it because you can have tens of thousands of people use that tool or that software or that app. The only downside to this is that you either need to have technical skills to build it yourself, or you have to pay someone to do it. Now we are halfway through the year, and recently there's been a few new tools released that will allow you to create apps and software without having to know how to code. So this might actually be much more attainable than what it was a few years ago. But either way, those are the 3 main paths I recommend you go down, because each one of those allows you to create an income stream that is fully location independent, which means that if you live somewhere or you invest in a country and then suddenly that place doesn't seem so favorable to you, you can then just decide to go move somewhere else. That's the beauty of having an online income stream. So guys, as always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Always happy to answer them for you, and I'll see you in the next one.